Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the State Partners, Working with Your State Partners Effectively session. We have 4 state agencies here today to talk to you about how you can work with them and the activities that they are conducting to support local governments on the ground. So to start off, we have Jeremy, who's been on the mic a few times this 2 days already, so I'm sure you're familiar. But prior to joining the PUC in May 2012, Jeremy worked as a planner for the cities of San Francisco and San Jose, relocating to the Bay Area in January 2003 from Seattle. He's a graduate of University of Washington, resides in the Mission District in San Francisco. All things equal, he prefers to make the commute to work by bike over Munibus. Be careful out there on the mean streets, Jeremy, and take it away.
Thanks. On your flash drive is the spreadsheet as well as a directory of important experts at the CPUC and Energy Division who are there to assist you with any local government issues you might have with various programs, be it finance, Z&E, EM&V. I'm looking out in the crowd to see if our Z&E expert is here. I think she might show up. If she does, I'll present her to you when her slide arrives. I did a special sort of shout-out slide to her at the last minute because she wanted to market an exciting new effort that she's doing, which is the Z&E Action Plan. But essentially, I'm going to go into the slide presentation, and I'm going to start out with some of the offices within the general CPUC. Mainly under the executive branch, and then I'm going to go into the energy division itself, mostly focusing on the energy efficiency sector and our services there. So some of the non-energy efficiency, programs that are outside of energy division, but are still local government resources that you should be aware of in case your city manager, elected official manager needs to know who to call. If you've got a CPUC issue that doesn't pertain to energy and you're wondering who to call, Office of Government Business Support Outreach could be a good place to start. The Offices of Government Affairs, they do a lot with any sort of pending state legislation that might be of interest to your particular lawmaker. We have a big media office because obviously CPUC does a lot of stuff that gets media attention. And not only are they there to give you press releases and hear of your interests of when the CPUC's been in the media lately, but they've got a whole bunch of fact sheets. They've got a website, and they can tell you how to access our meetings remotely in case you can't reach me and there's not another staff person to help you. And finally, there's a lot of really interest in getting CPUC staff, nobody knows why, to come to various forums, various keynote addresses, and probably the fastest and easiest way to do that is just to access this this website here. There's a little online form, and it goes straight to the source. The media director can channel that to the appropriate staff person or commissioner. We have a safety and enforcement division. They've recently gotten a new leader, and they've renamed the group from Safety and Consumer Protection Division to Safety Enforcement. So if your jurisdiction has concerns about any sort of infrastructure safety, consumer protection issues, rogue trucking companies. I meant to mention that we have a lot of other business lines outside of energy, and I just don't have time in 10 minutes to cover it all. But in case you don't know, outside of energy division, we've got a line of business and a division that covers water regulation, telecom regulation, railroad regulation, moving companies, and so on. So let's see. These are under the executive director's office. Or sorry, this is the safety and enforcement division. So moving down, we've got another division called the Division of Ratepayer Advocates. And California's a little unique in that this division essentially has staff to basically look at issues from the flip side of how are they affecting ratepayers, and are they in the ratepayers' interest or non-interest. Energy division, okay, and EE programs. Local government partnerships, I'm the person at the CPUC you can call. I'm the main point person So obviously, if you've got a question, how your partnership's supposed to work, or you want to know how you can join a partnership, come talk to me, or just pick up the phone or email me, and the contact information again on the flash drive in the spreadsheet. I'm also available to talk about any sort of government EE programs or issues outside the local government context. So maybe you're a quasi-local government agency like a water district, or maybe you've got a friend at a university somewhere, or a private university or private institution. I can talk to them and try to see if there's a fit for them for a partnership. I'm also handling the regional energy network, so if you've got a question about how your REN is supposed to work, or how you can join a REN or start a new REN, go ahead and contact me. We have a lead analyst who got hired about the same time as me, who's handling the Community Choice Aggregator CCA. So if you're looking to get information about that and how they work and what they're about and whether it might be a good fit for you, or you just want to get the data on whether or not it's going to pan out and be cost effective, you can contact Taru. Her phone number, email are on that spreadsheet of directory. We've got a really robust residential building program. We've got several people that work on that. Kathy Fogel's in the room. She works on residential. She's a senior lead analyst. And then your spreadsheet is going to talk about this, but I've kind of done this in the tune of sort of like, not that you're all dummies, but like kind of the dummies guide, like, when would you want to call these people? Maybe a question about how my jurisdiction can better promote EUC, target multifamily, coordinate with HVAC on multifamily dwellings. The commercial building program is also really robust. We've got a couple of analysts who work on this, and this sector obviously deals with office, retail, public schools, hospitals, what we call the MUSH market. We like acronyms at the PUC, so you get it, like municipal, university, school, means spells MUSH. Questions about benchmarking, Prop 39, HVAC. Looks like we're running out of time here. I'll speed it up. Water EE programs. We've got a full-time analyst on that. She's actually at the conference. She's going to be moderating later today. You can meet her. Her name's Meredith. We've got a lighting analyst and a lighting program. Workforce education and training analyst, marketing and education and outreach program, codes and standards. We've got much more than I can fit in this presentation. Finance programs. So EE is really a big deal at Energy Division. I'd say it's probably the biggest section within Energy Division. Z&E. Kathy Fogel's the lead analyst on this, so if you've got any questions or you want to think about talking to her about an idea you've got for doing a residential Z&E project in your jurisdiction, her information's up here. She's also in that directory. I think that's about it. So, came in on time. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. And be sure to check out that spreadsheet. It is very well organized, has all this information. So next up, I'm going to introduce Dana Papke-Waters from the Air Resources Board. Dana is an air pollution specialist at CARB with over 13 years of experience working on energy efficiency and green building. Ms. Papke-Waters is developing tools and resources for local governments to reduce the impacts of climate change and support sustainable communities. Dana.
Thanks, Lindsay. I see a lot of familiar faces. It's great to see everyone. It's been a while since I've been engaged at this forum, but I'm happy to be here today to share some of the key activities that the Air Resources Board is working on in this area. The Air Resources Board is really responsible for protecting public health, and we're doing this through reducing air pollution and improving air quality. And since 2006, we've been responsible for monitoring, regulating, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So some of the programs that I'm going to talk about today really do focus on climate change and implementation of our AB 32 legislation, as well as Executive Order S305. AB 32 requires us to reduce emissions down to 1990 levels by the year 2020, and the executive order requires us to reduce emissions 80% below those levels by 2050. So these are really aggressive targets that we're working on implementing at the Air Resources Board. I'm going to talk a little bit about our climate change scoping plan and an update that's underway right now. I'm going to touch on cap and trade, as well as our zero emission vehicle regulation and some guidance tools and research that's underway to support climate action planning and energy efficiency programs underway at the local level. And within each of these areas, I'm going to hopefully identify some ways that you can get engaged to help shape future direction. So our 2013 climate change scoping plan is really going to track and report progress on all of the activities and the measures that are underway over the last 5 years. It's going to highlight state and local government efforts that have been completed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and what's underway. There are opportunities to participate in the public process. We did hold a kickoff meeting last week on the plan, and we are accepting written comments until August 5th at this point if you'd like to get your feedback incorporated into a draft plan that we're releasing on August 15th. And our hope is to have, we are definitely holding some regional public workshops over the next couple months, and our plan is to bring a final report to the board in November of this year. Cap and trade, as many of you know, is a regulatory-based program to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It has a cap that declines over time, and participants can trade their state-issued allowances through auction, and the proceeds are allocated annually in the state budget. Cities and counties can participate in some of these investment priority areas and implement projects, and what we're recommending at this point is for cities and counties to coordinate closely with their local utilities to help implement some of these projects that may qualify for future funding. So by 2025, 1 in 8 cars will be either battery electric, fuel cell, or plug-in hybrid vehicles, and we expect that about 1.4 million electric vehicles will be on the road by 2025. So this is going to help reduce our emissions, but it's also going to require widespread infrastructure to meet the needs and the charging demand. It's also going to increase electricity demand and may pose some challenges for our zero net energy goals that Jeremy alluded to as well. So we definitely see a need for collaboration with cities and counties and the state agencies to help implement this program. We have also been working closely with the Building Standards Commission and Housing and Community Development to develop voluntary building standards that could be adopted at the local level as mandatory to help create consistent standards for electric vehicle charging provisions in homes and commercial buildings. So this is something that we hope that you might help to adopt, and then share with us some of your success stories and some of the associated greenhouse gas reductions through our Cool California website, which is another web resource that we're working on to provide assistance to all Californians on things that they can do to reduce their environmental impact. We recognize that there are different needs for various audiences, so we have developed customized climate calculators, success stories, as well as award programs for small businesses, for individuals and schools and local governments as well. But the two areas that I want to touch on briefly are the City Challenge and the Funding Wizard. So the City Challenge is really a way for cities to connect with and engage with their residents to reduce energy use and transportation demands, to reduce their carbon footprint. So the challenge is really to win the coolest city award is the idea. So there is an opportunity to sign up for the next round of the competition. You can just email challenge@coolcalifornia.org by August 15th with adding a city in the subject line. There was a lot of talk this morning about the need for funding incentives. So this is one of my pet projects that I've been working on. It's called the Funding Wizard. It is available through coolcalifornia.org, and we do have information. It's a public clearinghouse basically of all the different rebates, loans, tax incentives, and grant programs that are available statewide and from national or federal agencies as well. The Strategic Growth Council has funded phase 2 of this project, so we're expanding some of our topic areas to go beyond just climate change, but also expanding sustainable communities. We have a survey. I know everybody loves taking surveys, right? So we are hoping that you will fill out our survey that's available online to give us feedback, because we really want to know, is it functioning well? Are there things that we can do to improve it, because we have money to update it, and we'd love to get your feedback on how to make this more useful for your needs. And as you know, many state agencies, all of us are working on climate action planning, assistance, tools, resources, guidance. So it really is critical for us to all work together, and we have been working together. We've been working closely with OPR, with the Strategic Growth Council, the SEEC organization. And so one of the latest initiatives, which kind of ties into the key thing today, is a data work group. Because we do recognize that that is a need out there. So we are trying to collaborate on how to make that information more available. You can engage by participating in the OPR roundtables, as well as our local government advisory group, and share some of your experiences so that we can get that data into some of the existing tools and offer some success stories. So these are a few research projects that I've been involved with that I thought might be of interest to the group today as well. Because a lot of cities and counties are requiring Greenpoint rated certification for all new residential development, we did fund version 2 of the climate calculator, which I think could be very useful for a lot of cities and counties when you're trying to quantify the greenhouse gas reductions of some of these green homes in your community. We did fund a residential energy use and greenhouse gas emission reduction research project that's looking at land use designations. So when you're developing your general plan, this can help you figure out, if you zone differently, what is the associated greenhouse gas reduction potential by 2035 for some of those designations. The third one is still underway. It's trying to quantify the greenhouse gas co-benefits of commercial certified green buildings, so LEED buildings basically, to figure out if what we're projecting for greenhouse gas reductions is actually occurring on the ground through some measured reductions. So we're hoping that some of the results of this research can really help you when you're implementing your climate action plans. We're going to be coordinating a state agency review team, and also probably facilitating our local government advisory group again in August to get together to figure out which of these tools can stand alone, which of them need to be folded into existing tools that are out there, and how we can make that information easy for you. And if you'd like to get involved, you can participate in our local government advisory group. So just see me after the presentation. So that's 101 high level, big picture, brush over many of the different programs that we're working on at the Air Resources Board. I'm certainly not the lead in all of those areas, but you know, if you want to stay engaged and know what's going on a regular basis, you can sign up for our email listservs, join our RSS newsfeed. You can contact some of these folks who are the lead in some of these other areas. And of course, you can contact myself or my colleague Tabitha Willman, who is my partner in working on developing a lot of these local government tools and guidance. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dana. And we will have a robust Q&A period at the end. So next up, we have Deborah Godfrey from the California Energy Commission, who manages the Special Projects Office at the CEC. She oversees energy efficiency financing, technical assistance for local governments, schools, special districts, and public hospital facilities, local energy assurance planning, AB 118 projects, and monitoring and verification of the ARA program. Deborah is a very busy lady, but she is here to tell us all about what you need to know about the California Energy Commission. Deborah.
I want to thank everyone for being here today, and please bear with me. I was told late yesterday afternoon, I would be doing this, so luckily, Lindsay managed to get an abundant crowd here with her excellent presentation to get everyone in. And she also managed to change my name. Uh, so I want to thank everybody. Please bear with me. I may have limited information on the California Local Energy Assurance Plan, but we do have a CEC member, Dave Michelle, who's, raise your hand and you can talk to him for whatever I'm not able to cover. And I'm also probably going to be glossing over the portion of this presentation that discusses AB 758 because Commissioner McAllister did such an excellent job and I'm not going to do it. First one I'm going to talk about is exclusively our program, which is the ECA, the Energy Conservation Assistance Act. We offer a variety of things at the Energy Commission. We have, basically it says 2 key programs, but I'm going to interject a third one because it's kind of the one closest and dearest to my heart. We have our technical assistance program, and it says here exclusive, it says for Energy Partnership Program. And Karen Perrin, who is there, and raise your hand, Karen, you can see her, and she has applications for this program. Also, I see many people that have participated in our programs here as well. So spread the good word. Tell them how much fun it was to work with us. The Energy Partnership Program is available for local governments, colleges, hospitals, special districts, and public care facilities. We have an identical program with a different title. It accomplishes the exact same thing, but it is exclusively for K through 12 schools. So keep that in mind and pass that information on to your local school districts. We also have the part that everybody seems to really want, and so you kind of got an edge because while you had an option of being in this presentation or in the one on financing, this one will actually cover financing, so you killed 2 birds with 1 stone here. We have the energy project financing, which is again for the same people that are eligible for our technical assistance programs. We fund loans up to 100% of the cost, and we use the energy savings for the repayment of the loan. Some of the examples of the technical assistance we do, and the most popular would be the comprehensive energy audit. As you can see at the bottom, we bear most of the cost of an energy audit, and if we structure it appropriately, usually the $20,000 of our consultant costs will cover an energy audit for your facilities. If it doesn't, we can break it up into components and do certain portions of your facilities at one time, come back again after you've made some progress in implementing our recommendations, come back in again and do it at another facility. I also want to mention that one time we had a kind of an interesting success story. We had a local company that had put a project out to bid, and they had 2 competing bids, and they didn't feel that they had the expertise to review the bids effectively. And with our assistance, they managed to, we acted as a third party and reviewed both of the bids and gave them the pros and cons of both. They were able to go back to their contractors and get a substantially better deal by virtue of our review of both of the projects. This is the way our application looks. We will have those at the table. We have funding for the energy savings. Our interest rate is currently 1%. It may change, it may go down, which is pretty good. We have a ceiling of $3 million per application, and again, like I said, you can come back and have more than one loan with us, as long as you have made some progress in your first project. The application's quite simple. Literally 2 pages and a couple of documents that will need to be attached. We would do a technical review of each application, and the estimated repayment could take up to 15 years, a 13-year simple payback. The first payment, it says, is not due for 6 months after the project is completed. That's a minimum. If your project completes in February of a year, your first payment would not be due till December, which is 11 months. And funds can also supplement incentives and other rebates. And we do technical support before, during, and after your project. As you can see, we've funded $206 million in loans since 2001. We've had quite a significant energy savings. And you can see the different categories that we've funded. As you can see, as usual, lighting is by far the most popular. Followed close, or actually HVAC is first. Lighting is most popular. Our lighting was our number one choice with our ERA funds, and I noticed that many of you out there were recipients of the ERA funds, and hopefully you had a good time working with us. Raise your hand if you did. Hey, there we go. That's what I want to see. Yeah. While I understand that, because of the ERA funds, there may be some low-hanging fruit that has already been picked, but we do expect that there are still a significant amount of savings out there to be had. And then we'll discuss the California Local Energy Assurance Plan. Like I said, once again, see Dave, he has much more information on this than I. The CalLEAP program establishes the voluntary program for the local governments, and it's meant to ensure that you've really increased the energy resiliency and have approached it with an all-hazards approach, and encourages comprehensive planning. The goal of that is to identify projects and actions to ensure energy to local governments, key facilities, and assets needed to sustain all of us in the essential times for emergencies. The objectives are we will demonstrate how to prepare the energy assurance plan, present new and evolving energy technologies, and develop awareness of the community's features, such as what's good, what's bad, what's indifferent, and encourage public and private partnerships. The planning methodology would be first form your team, develop your energy assurance plan, finalize your EAP, implement and maintain it and update it, and certainly take advantage of the expertise available through our commission staff. 7:58, as I promised, I'm going to gloss over this because Commissioner McAllister did so much on it. It calls for, this is what it would call for. We can, I understand also from the other sides in some of the concerns with some of the databases aren't available at this point, but I have been assured that everybody is working on them and hopes to get them up and available for use soon. And as you can see, we are there. So we're not far into the process, but we are moving along. And as McAllister mentioned, there are draft action plan workshops scheduled for as early as next Monday, and then again Tuesday, and then Friday. And also information is always available on our through WebEx for those events. And then workshop availability and notices are available on our website as well. These are the key people. If you're interested in our energy partnership program, we have that listed. And Karen, there again, is our expertise on eco loans. And Dave, again, who's here. And Christine Colopy, who would have been here to speak on 7:58, but because of Prop 39 is quite busy. And they didn't even think to put a thank you one in there for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Deborah. So next up we have Michael McCormick from OPR. I thought maybe he sent his younger brother, but turns out he just shaved. Michael is the Local and Regional Affairs Advisor and Senior Planner at the Governor's Office of Planning and Research with the state of California. He joined OPR and Governor Jerry Brown's administration in July 2011. His focus is at the nexus of local government and state policy, where he works on greenhouse gas emission mitigation, climate change adaptation, preparedness, sustainability, tools, resources, development, and communication issues. And he's also actively working to institutionalize the consideration of climate change across agencies and organizations at the state, regional, and local level. Michael is a great asset to local governments, and he's here today to talk to you about how he can help.
Thank you, Lindsay. I am my younger brother. Actually, I am the younger brother, so my brother's never had a beard, so that would be a little weird. It's really nice to be here. It's great to see so many familiar faces. The State Energy Efficiency Collaborative discussions are always really valuable to us as we think about what OPR's role could be in helping local governments and regional collaboratives work on issues around climate change and energy efficiency in particular. So I'm going to take it up a little bit. For those of you that may not be familiar with all of what OPR does, in particular for this audience, I'm going to focus in a little bit more on the energy climate change piece. But I think it's great that they were able to go in front of me, because one of OPR's primary responsibilities is coordinating among agencies and departments within the state and also serve as the primary liaison to local governments and the primary access point for local government interface within the state. So under various administrations, OPRs had a varying level of responsibility to achieve our statutes. Governor Brown feels very strongly about OPR's role in helping to coordinate some of these discussions at the state level and with our local and regional partners. So we've been provided some resources to be able to do that. There's about 20 folks that work at OPR, 13 policy staff and council. So we, although it may seem like we're everywhere, I don't know, maybe we are everywhere. It feels like sometimes I'm trying to get everywhere at the same time. This afternoon I'm headed down to Santa Barbara for the launch of the ICLEI Resilient Communities campaign in California. Mayor Kevin Johnson is the chair of that, the national chair of that program, so we're very excited to have the chair here in Sacramento and have California be at the forefront of that program too. So Santa Barbara tomorrow, it'll be fun. I think I'm going to incorporate some of the weekend into that trip. So we've really been working on three things. And you know, our primary objective is really to see the high-level goals and priorities of the governor turned into reality on the ground. Some places that's easier than others. But we're working on three primary things at OPR. One is transportation, looking at vehicle miles traveled. How do we manage those more effectively? Greenhouse gas emissions clearly is linked to that and a bunch of other things. Electric vehicles has been one of our primary coordination points internally within the state, but then also with our external partners like the Plug-in Electric Vehicle Collaborative. Energy is the next piece, energy efficiency, renewables, on down the line. We are also actively engaged on the data discussion with the CPUC, CEC, and our external partners. The climate side is something that unifies all these discussions as well. In order to achieve our longer-term targets by 2050, we, as a state, really need to go through transformation. 80% below 1990 levels by 2050 is what we're aiming for. To give you a feeling of what that means, and Dana went over some numbers by 2025 of what we're aiming for electrification of the transportation network, but that means over 80% of our vehicles on the road need to be zero emission, and the related upgrades to the energy infrastructure to be near zero emission as well. So we are on a pretty strong trajectory here to hit those 2050 targets. We're in line to hit our 2020 targets, which is fantastic, but 2050 is going to be a much steeper climb, and we're going to need every level of government engaged in that, whether it be state, federal, regional, local. So one of the things that OPR is working on is really that long-term vision. It's one of our statutory mandates. We're the planning entity, the comprehensive planning entity for the state. And so we're looking out to 2050, realizing that right now there's 38 million people in California. By 2050, there'll be about 50 million. So our infrastructure issues right now are one that are stressed already. With the exacerbating effects of climate change, we're facing a very uncertain future as we gear towards 2050. So getting our state agency and department partners together to talk more effectively with our regional and local partners that are actually doing the work on the ground on infrastructure and making the hard decisions around climate change for both a greenhouse gas emission standpoint and adaptation standpoint is important. One of the things that we're working on internally is this, the stars have aligned. Some of you have heard me say that before, but it's true. There's no giggles to that? Stars aligning in the state of California. We have a number of document and program efforts underway right now to update what's been on the books for a number of years. For example, the general plan guidelines have been in force since 2003. There's been one minor update, but there's not a single reference to climate change in that entire document. So we're doing a comprehensive update right now, and one of the unifying things is climate change. How do we think about the future that's going to be inevitably changing as a result of the impacts of climate change? How do we plan for that at the local level? So one of the statutory authorities of OPR is to manage the general plan guidelines, manage the CEQA guidelines, and provide advisories and technical support on thinking about how to plan in the future. In mid-July, we will have a public review draft of the Climate Action Plan Technical Advisory. Last year, you heard me talk about this as well, but it's finally going to be hitting the streets mid-July. We have a selected group of stakeholders looking at it right now, and it'll provide some pretty strong guidance on how to move forward into the future on planning for climate change, with that the intention of being that 2050 long-term trajectory being in mind for everybody in the state, whether it be the state or regional or local effort. We have EV, PV, and DG guidelines and guidebooks out on the street. Electric vehicles, photovoltaics, and distributed generation, because these are things that we were told that are very important for local governments, and we worked internally with our state partners and then also externally with interested parties to come up with these guidebooks. And we're also developing workshops and conferences to help support conversation of climate change at the local and regional level. And energy efficiency, since that's the perspective of this conference, is tied into all of that. You know, energy efficiency is our highest priority because it's where we can really get the biggest bang for the buck on reducing emissions, being able to really incorporate renewables more effectively into the grid, allows for more capacity without providing more generation. So it has a lot of different benefits. And you know, as we think about the future, and Dana brought this up as well, but electric vehicles will certainly impact how the grid grows out over time, and incorporating energy efficiency into how we deal with things now will allow for that flexibility in the future for when we are aiming to electrify more and more of what we do, because liquid fuels used by consumers is not the best approach when we're looking at air quality and climate change issues. So, you know, I actually might leave it there, even though I have 3 minutes left. And I'd really like to hear your questions and thoughts. I always get fantastic questions from this group, and I know a lot of you in here ask tough questions. So I do have a spreadsheet before I go, though. And I showed this to Kate Meese and said, you really need to share that with. I can't, I'm sorry. But it's a spreadsheet. And what it does is this is all of the climate change program and policy document updates that are occurring in the state right now. And it's a list of about 35 different efforts underway. So one of the things OPR does is help to coordinate the language between all of these efforts and help to coordinate policy and program development so that we're speaking the same language. Hopefully this will be public soon. Hopefully I'll be able to put it up on the OPR website. So if you want additional information about what we're doing and how you can get more engaged, and there's no zooming in on those high pixel cameras, by the way. Yvonne, I knew it. I knew you were going to do that. If you want to continue to be engaged and help provide feedback on the work that we're doing to help coordinate some of these discussions, please do sign up for the email lists that are on the OPR website in the upper right-hand corner. I manage the climate change email list, but I'm also very accessible by email or telephone. Feel free to reach out to me, and we can have a conversation about what's important to you and how we can reflect that in some of the work that we're doing. Thank you.
We promise spreadsheets. It's 2. Okay, so it looks like we have about a half an hour for Q&A, and at the request of our videographers, we'd like you to step up to the microphone if you have a question. To kick it off, I know a number of our panelists pointed out their colleagues. I was hoping maybe we could have you all just stand up and maybe introduce yourself and your program to the group again from the SEEC, and if you want to start, tell the group what you do and your name.
I'm Karen Perrin with the California Energy Commission, and I work with the Energy Partnership Program, which is low-interest loans for implementing energy projects as well as technical assistance. We have some brochures on the side counter as well, and be happy to talk to you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Fogel. I work with the California Public Utilities Commission. I'm in the demand programs branch in the residential section. So I've been there about 6 years, and I oversee the utility residential programs. I used to work on the whole house program, and now I'm working more on behavior change programs. If you haven't heard, the utilities are holding a workshop on behavior programs next week, June 25th and 26th. And we're trying to move them towards more strategic behavioral interventions as well as engage the community. I also work on the Zero Net Energy goals of the state, and we're developing a Zero Net Energy 2020 residential action plan. So right now we don't have very much local government involvement in that. We've talked with Kate about perhaps putting together a webcast, but if you'd like more information and know how to get involved, let me know, or my consultant, Mindy Craig. We have on quarterly stakeholder meetings and some subcommittee meetings that we're hoping to develop and launch an action plan on this later this year. And I also work on plug loads programs, and we're trying to develop some new thinking about market transformation programs within the utilities. So that's what I do.
I think we had two more gentlemen.
Dave Michelle, California Energy Commission, the Cal LEAP program, the California Energy Assurance Planning program. What we try to do is use a comprehensive planning approach and get locals to identify some of their key facilities or critical facilities and assets, meaning like vehicles and flood pumps that need energy during a disaster when typically the energy is not there. That process also provides energy awareness and exactly how to do energy upgrades smartly within those facilities and vehicles. So it provides a framework in which they can roll out to the rest of their community.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rajan Mutialu. An analyst with the CPUC. As Jeremy had explained, I'm actually a liaison to the Office of Governmental Affairs. So if you have any questions regarding proposed legislation on DG, DR, you can come and ask me about that. I also work on rates. So if you have any questions regarding lighting tariffs, EV tariffs, I'm also lead analyst on the economic development rate proceeding, which might be of interest to local government parties. I know Commissioner Farron's office is working on that, so Michael Colvin, who's also here, can also talk to you about that as well. I'm also the lead analyst on the smart meter opt-out proceeding, if that might be of some interest to local government parties as well. Yeah, and also I've worked on DR-related proceedings as well.
Well, thank you so much for introducing yourselves and explaining a little bit more about your work and how local governments can tap into that. So if not, I'll open it up to our first question.
Thank you. I'm Betty Cito from DMV KEMA. So my question is around, I've heard, there's just so many different programs and technical assistance and resources available out there. And I think there's a certain amount of confusion. So I have a couple of specific questions for Dana. You mentioned some GHG reduction tools, or maybe GHG inventory tools, even cap planning tools. And I'm wondering how those are different or complementary to the SEEC tools. And then similarly for Deborah, you mentioned some technical assistance, free audits. And so how are those, complementary to the IOU resources for free audits and things like that, and how do local governments navigate some of those programs to figure out what's best for them, and kind of promoting the comprehensive energy efficiency across both the community and the municipal facilities in a way that's not too disjointed or confusing. So.
Because a lot of the research projects that we funded and the data collection that we've been doing is all funneling into the SEEC tools. So it's one and the same. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to help make the existing tools more robust and comprehensive.
I can't promise that there wouldn't be, we can make it easy in navigation, but we will come out, our staff, when you apply, the staff would come out and do a scoping visit and discuss with you what your ultimate goal is, where you're going, what you've done, and we would coordinate also with your local utilities and try not to duplicate anyone's efforts, and come up with a plan. And we do offer a comprehensive audit that may encompass some portions that a IOU may not cover.
Thank you.
And just to add on to that, this is one of OPR's responsibilities too, is looking at what all the agencies and departments are doing within the state and trying to distill them down into something that's helpful and manageable for local governments. We've had some success on that front. We still need to do a better job, and we're working with our partners within the state to make sure that the tools that are rolling out are translated for local and regional use most effectively. So again, looking to the OPR lists and our updates that go to our website, any any local government assistance program that's rolled out, typically it comes out through our listserv as well.
Hello, my name is Ann Hewitt. I'm working with the County of Ventura currently. In the past, I was on the first management team for the California Climate Action Registry. And I have a question about attribution, and it may seem a little petty unless you get down on the ground. And it relates, I mean, I'm going to ask about electric vehicles. It also relates to local water as opposed to state imported water. It relates to public transportation as opposed to private vehicles. And that is that if you want to push electric vehicles and the infrastructure, likely it's going to start with local governments. That's what they're going to be the first ones to step up and have the stations, and they're going to put them in their parking garages. And by doing so, they're increasing their carbon footprint. And right now, there's really no way to clearly communicate the contribution that local governments are making to the overall state reductions in greenhouse gases. And I think my question is for you, and that is the ARB looking into that? Are there I mean, I know that the Climate Registry has often looked at metrics, but what is the ARB doing about it?
In terms of increasing your carbon footprint, I would disagree, because what you're actually doing is you're shifting from fuel combustion of gasoline, and you're providing infrastructure for the electric vehicles.
Yeah, let me clarify. If it's providing those services to the public.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas in the past I didn't provide it, I didn't have a fueling station for the public. Now I have an electric vehicle charging station.
Sure. I see what you mean. So it's a community-wide issue, though. And I don't know, Michael, you've been really involved in the community protocol development and maybe could address how we're quantifying that. But from ARB's perspective, we see that shift in fuels from gasoline to electricity as a reduction in transportation sector emissions. So when we look at it from the statewide perspective, we're seeing that reduction there, and are hoping to assign any of those building-related charging stations to the transportation sector, because it is electric vehicle charging and transportation
I completely
related.
agree at the state level, and it's the same thing for local water pumping as opposed to imported water pumping. It's the same issue. Right now, there's no way for the state to give credit to the local governments for the contribution that they make to overall emissions, not necessarily to their own little communities' emissions, but to the state as a whole. And I just like to throw that in the hopper and perhaps have it be considered in the discussions.
Sure.
Thank you.
That's a very good point. We're actually in our Climate Action Plan Technical Advisory that'll be released in mid-July. One of the things we are talking about is local government role in reducing emissions at the statewide level, and how to balance some of that paradigm. And we're also talking about this through the AB 32 scoping plan update. We're working on a little bit more substantial discussion about the local government role in the scoping plan update, and I think it'll be a really good context for the role locals play in statewide reductions, which really wasn't discussed too much in the last scoping plan.
Hi, Aaron Clem with the City of Huntington Beach, and since we have the ARB here as well as Mike from the OPR, wanted to ask about any updates on the neighborhood electric vehicle legislative remedies, so that other cities can do, or counties can do, what Riverside County does with their neighborhood electric vehicles.
I haven't been following it, but thanks for the reminder. I'll go back and check it out, though.
We've got a real activist community in Huntington Beach, and they want it bad. South Bay LA, where and Huntington Beach isn't really a freeway served community, so we've got a lot of sort of collectors that are lower speed streets. That Riverside County, because of the golf courses that they have there, they got a county-only law that allows neighborhood electric vehicles up to 25 miles an hour to cross certain state highways, arterials, that no other city or county has. That then allows sort of these NEV sort of pockets to develop where there's, zero emission vehicle.
Okay.
Thank you for the background on that, Erin.
So Linda Pratt from the City of San Diego. I'm speaking today not so much from the City of San Diego, but as my role with Green Cities California, which is a collaborative effort of a number of progressive cities from across the state. And at a recent meeting that we held, we were discussing greenhouse gas emissions, and we had folks from Marin and from other areas that also benefit from community choice aggregation, as well as a lot of the cities that are doing a lot with electric vehicles. And you know, what we saw when we're looking at our greenhouse gas emissions inventories is that it is community choice aggregation, or, you know, if you can get utilities to do tremendous increases in renewable, that bring down your greenhouse gas emissions. All the stuff we're doing is sort of dancing around the edges, but there is huge benefits for increasing the RPS or, you know, going to community choice aggregation. Electric vehicles, same deal, although I appreciate very much what you said, because it is true. When we're doing our local inventories, our energy use goes up because we are, you know, providing that.
And I think that just might be an accounting issue, that maybe we should be quantifying that in the transportation sector as opposed to the energy sector.
That would be great if we could separate that out. Sometimes it's not as
Right.
easy to separate out because it's on the same meter. So that's sometimes a difficult thing to do. So in any case, I guess what I'm really asking is that as we all local governments try to do everything that we can, and we're trying to meet those, you know, show how we're meeting our 2050 targets, I do wonder what kind of consideration is out there for, you know, the incredibly important work that can be done at the state level and what is being done. And then additionally, I know federal level, there may be something coming out next week on what the president's climate plan is, and maybe all of our worries will be done. But yeah, so
Just pack
but
up
it
and go
makes
home.
I mean, really and truly, the inventory thing in terms of reductions of GHGs is like, there's, you know, for renewable energy, and there's for the 50 billion little programs that we're trying to do. It's just tiny. And that's all I'd like to say, just for discussion.
You're recommending something for inclusion in our climate change scoping plan update to recognize a lot of the local initiatives underway and to quantify some of those. I'm sorry.
No, Linda, in talking with you many times in the past.
Yes, thank you, Michael.
I think
I
that.
wasn't looking at you this time.
No.
I was going
Yeah,
down.
well, I appreciate you looking at Dana this time. I think that, you know, I think you are going to appreciate the language that is currently being worked up for the scoping plan update, talking about long-term transformation and the responsibility of the state under in order to achieve those 2050 targets. I don't think we recognize that local governments have a large role in reducing statewide greenhouse gas emissions, but at the same time, state action is essential at a number of different levels in order to continue progressing in those emissions reductions. And, you know, utility sector is certainly a large contributor to that, and the RPS is a very important part of the discussion. You also probably want to take a look at the Climate Action Plan Technical Advisory, because some of our prior discussions are now reflected in that working draft. So
You listen?
I do listen. That's true. So
right.
in
So we'll look at that.
mid-July, if you can take a look at that, and depending on the timeline with the scoping plan, we are trying to align some of the language between the two so that there is some consistencies there. So.
Very nice to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Yvonne Hunter, and I'm with the Institute for Local Government. We are one of the SEEC partners. And hello, Michael and Dana. It's so nice to see you again. I do encourage you all to take her up on her invitation to look at it and send feedback.
And Yvonne, a quick comment on that. One of the reasons why it was refunded by SGC was the positive comments we received from local governments that are
Great.
using it. So it's really important that if you like a tool that we have, let us know that you're using it and that it's working.
Great.
Because that'll guarantee it's refunding. Well,
Okay.
not guarantee,
But it'll help.
it'll certainly help with refunding.
There, as many speakers have said, as Linda said previously, there really is a lot of great stuff going on at the local level. And we at the Institute, our main activity under the SEEC collaboration is the Beacon program. And if you want to find out the richness of what's going on in cities and counties around the state, take a look at our website. The information is on your thumb drive. We have a brochure down there, but we now have close to 50 cities and counties and participating. If you want to participate, see Lindsay or me. But there is literally pages and pages of what cities and counties are doing, and this is all voluntary activity that goes above state requirements. So that's the shameless commercial. And the question, Michael, and you actually gave me a nice open door on this. With the state budget that has been passed, the governor hasn't signed it, I guess, and some of the trailer bills, am I right? Is there, I'm curious about the funding status of the Strategic Growth Council, because the Strategic Growth Council really was one of the funding opportunities for local agencies doing climate action planning, strategic community strategies. Can you give us a sense of where that is or isn't?
Sure.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, I'm. If you have more specific questions for SGC, I can answer generally, but I'd suggest contacting staff there, either Mike McCoy or Allison Joe. They're very open. They accept calls and emails and respond pretty quickly too. So they're a great group of folks. The SGC is clearly, it's been identified as something that's important to continue. It was identified in the scoping plan or the expenditure plan, the cap and trade revenue, as one of the potential funding entities. So we are seeing, we're certainly seeing the value of SGC continuing, and I think there's a strong interest in seeing it get refunded and supporting ongoing granting to local and regional efforts. We know that the revenue expenditure plan and the resulting criteria that the agencies are going to develop will fund local and regional efforts to a certain extent. But those details are still going to be worked out, as well as SGC's role in that. So that's probably the primary funding source that we're looking to at this point as an option. But looking forward, there may be other opportunities too. So.
And Mike, for the folks in the room that may not be familiar, just briefly explain SGC.
So SGC was established by SB 732 as a follow-up to SB 375 that mandates regional MPOs develop sustainable community strategies. And one of its functions is to help fund upgrades in the MPO modeling infrastructure so that there's some better consistencies and better modeling throughout the state to reduce emissions at the regional level and to be able to track that moving forward. Another one was to provide grant funding for local and regional efforts that are contributing to regional emissions reductions and local emission reductions in compliance with 732. But then the third one, which is one that they're taking more of an active role in, is review of the 5-year infrastructure plan and coordination between agencies on implementing sustainable planning priorities throughout the state. So in 2002, the legislature adopted these state's planning priorities. This is a really important bit of language. It's very short. If you haven't looked at it before, I'd go take a look at it. It's some of the basis for many of the document updates that are happening right now. And it links to longer-term priorities that the state can engage in to make sure that we have a sustainable and vibrant California moving forward. So SGC is a big part of that discussion and making sure that happens.
Thank you. Susan?
My question's for Deborah. Your presentation mentioned the 1% loans that the CEC has, but my understanding is that it's very oversubscribed, and in fact it was going to be about a year from now before new loans could really be issued. Has that changed? Are you all getting more funding?
Well, with the Prop 39 money coming in, it will free up the money that is in that fund that goes to all of the categories. And so now there will be a large pot of money that will only be accessible to the schools. So in essence, it will free up other money as the repayments come back in on those twice-a-year repayments in June and December of every year. So that money, I don't see why it wouldn't, the bulk of it wouldn't, there would be no need for other than schools to hit that money, the money coming in. So that we will be able to, but I will admit it is seriously oversubscribed.
So as of right now,
there's a
waiting list.
There is a waiting list, yes, unfortunately. But when the money comes in, then there'll be a separate pot for the schools, so those ones that are on that waiting list, the schools will come out and they'll go into the other pot. So I expect, and then there's always talk of other money. Maybe we should be asking him, and we're hopeful that that may bring some money in as well.
Great.
But unfortunately, yes, we are subscribed. But I would encourage anybody that's interested, get on the list. The worst you can do is you may have to wait, and we can get and we do have people that frequently. In fact, we've had two jurisdictions that have dropped out in the last couple of weeks, either found another source or couldn't wait, or locally they just couldn't bear the burden. So we do have movement almost every day in that fund. So it isn't always as dire as it appears.
Okay, thank you.
I've worked on roughly about 40 climate action plans nationwide, and many of them in California. And my concern, or from my observations in those processes, is that the effectiveness and maybe even the legitimacy of climate action planning has been jeopardized somewhat by the state's lack of defined methodologies and objectives. And I know the technical advisory papers are going to come out soon for the public to review, but what is, in terms of tools and methodologies and defined methodologies, what is the state? Is the state taking a prescriptive approach towards that, or is it going to rely on recommendations, much like the previous 15% reduction for local jurisdictions, which was a recommendation rather than a prescription, and has caused some confusion, I think, in the industry?
Yeah, well, it's challenging because local land use control is a holy grail of the state of California. So we have to be careful when we're talking about providing guidance and technical assistance, in that we don't want to be overly prescriptive. There's most jurisdictions within the state of California have adopted that AB 32 scoping plan recommended 15% below current levels by 2020 amount. And we've been asked over and over and over again to provide longer-term interim targets towards our longer-term 2050 goal, and to provide those suggested targets, because that provides support and backup for local staff as they're going to their decision makers. And so that is part of the technical advisory at this point. We're still working on exactly what those targets look like, because part of the discussion is that we are currently developing our interim targets for the state that go on post-2020. So depending on what those target looks like, we'll be developing our recommended local targets. So I think that your perspective is heard pretty much by every jurisdiction trying to plan post-2020. So we are going to have to allow some flexibility in there. Some jurisdictions have chosen to go way beyond the recommended level that was suggested in the scoping plan. And they've also, some have decided to go less than that. And there haven't been any legal situations that have indicated that that's inappropriate. We may in the future, we'll see. But we are trying to provide some greater guidance moving forward towards our 2050 targets. And as a part of that, linking that back to the general plan guidelines update, which will be in draft in October or November, for those of you interested in reviewing a new general plan guidelines update. So linking the climate action plan discussions back to general plans, and how to incorporate climate change discussions in general plans using that longer term scenario discussions.
Great. The SEEC toolkit, I think, is a great step forward, creating common methods in each jurisdiction. Then that can be analyzed. Is that going to be more than recommended at some point? Because what I see is, between different jurisdictions, radically different methodologies have been used in the past, which leads to this uncertainty about whether a jurisdiction actually is achieving such a reduction or not. So it seems like the objective, that's great news that there's more guidance on that, but the specific, I don't want to say tools, but methodologies for even in inventories and such would be.
I would say there's three different tools that we're strongly recommending people use. Is the local government operations protocol, the ICLEI national protocol, which ARB and OPR both sat on the steering committee for, and the adaptation planning guide for the adaptation piece of the discussion. ARB and OPR have been working actively with ICLEI as they've been updating the SEEC toolkit to respond to the current protocol, but also specific deviations that we're asking for the California context. Because for the purposes of CEQA, in particular, which most climate action plans are being developed now to accommodate the CEQA criteria, there's very specific things you have to do that the national level protocol doesn't necessarily require. So that'll be in the Climate Action Plan Technical Advisor, and we're working closely with ARB to ensure that discussion meshes with their work moving forward too.
And does that also relate to reduction methodology, reduction quantification methodology?
Yeah, and a lot of the data that we funded collection for is being folded into the Climate and Energy Management Suite tool through SEEC. It's California-specific cost savings, GHG reductions. I don't think that we'll ever recommend one methodology over another because it is very specific, or each local government is different. So we'll just basically offer these suite of reduction strategies and allow you to pick and choose and make your own decisions about what's applicable to your local jurisdiction.
I would like to just give a round of applause to all of our panelists. Thank you for coming today.